Rebecca Hayes took a deep breath as the doors opened. She had trained for this moment her entire life, but nothing could truly prepare someone for their first steps onto an alien space station. Behind her stood Lieutenant David Miller and Dr. William Bennett, Earth's finest representatives. Together, they were humanity's voice among the stars. The year was 2187. Humans had finally broken the light barrier and found they were not alone in the universe. Now Rebecca walked through corridors filled with creatures from dozens of worlds. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. All of them stopped to stare at the humans passing by. The council chamber was enormous. 4 to 7 species had gathered here, representatives from civilizations that had explored the stars for thousands of years. Rebecca felt small and young in their presence. The aliens spoke in various languages, all translated by devices in their ears. Most seemed polite but distant, like adults watching children play. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," said Elder Councilor Vex, a tall being with silver skin and too many eyes. "We are pleased to meet humanity." The greeting ceremony was formal and long. Rebecca answered questions about Earth's culture, technology, and history. The aliens nodded politely, though she could tell they considered humans primitive. After all, most council species had been traveling between stars for longer than human civilization had existed. Finally came the registration process. A clerk from the Arxian species, looking bored, asked for Earth's location. David provided the stellar coordinates. The clerk entered them into a computer terminal without much interest. "This will just take a moment," the clerk said, tapping buttons on his screen. "The system cross-references your world's position with our historical databases to assign you a diplomatic code." Rebecca waited. William adjusted his glasses nervously. David stood at attention, always the soldier. The computer beeped. Then it beeped again, faster this time. The clerk's face changed. His eyes went wide, and all the color drained from his skin. He stumbled backward from the terminal as if it had burned him. Red lights exploded across every screen in the chamber. A piercing alarm shrieked through the station. Rebecca's ears rang with the sound. Around them, alien representatives leaped from their seats. Some ran for the exits. Others activated weapons that appeared from nowhere. "What's happening?" David shouted, his hand moving toward his sidearm. The main display screen lit up with words in dozens of languages. Rebecca's translator struggled to keep up, but one phrase repeated over and over in crimson letters: "Deathworld Sigma XVII. Deathworld Sigma XVII. Deathworld Sigma XVII." Security barriers slammed down around the human delegation. They were trapped in a circle of energy walls. Outside, the chamber had descended into chaos. Aliens were screaming. Some species she had thought peaceful were now holding weapons and backing away in terror. "Stand down," Rebecca commanded, trying to keep her voice calm. "We mean no harm." Elder Counselor Vex appeared on a screen above them. The old alien's composed face had cracked. He looked terrified. In all their briefings, Rebecca had never imagined she would see fear like this from a species that had conquered the stars millennia ago. "You?" Vex's voice shook. "You come from there? How are you alive? How did you survive long enough to build starships?" "Survive what?" William asked, confusion clear in his voice. Other counselors appeared on surrounding screens. A warrior species called the Kryn had armed themselves with plasma weapons. A peaceful species known as the Velkryn were evacuating their young. Everyone was treating the humans like dangerous animals that had somehow learned to speak. Rebecca felt anger rising in her chest. They had come in peace. They had shared everything about their world. And now they were being treated like monsters. But beneath the anger was something else. Something that made her skin crawl. These aliens knew something about Earth that humans did not. She stepped forward to the energy barrier and looked directly at Elder Vex. Her voice was steady and clear when she spoke. "What do you know about our world that we don't?" The alarm continued to wail. The red warnings flashed across every screen. And in the silence that followed her question, Rebecca realized that humanity's place among the stars would be nothing like they had imagined. Earth had a reputation in the galaxy. And that reputation was written in blood and terror. Whatever humanity was about to learn would change everything. 3 hours passed before the alarms finally stopped. Rebecca and her team sat in a sealed conference room, surrounded by armed guards. No one would answer their questions. No one would even look at them directly. Finally, the door opened. A tall, thin alien entered. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes were ancient beyond measure. He introduced himself as High Archivist Thal, keeper of the Council's historical records. I will show you, Thal said quietly. You deserve to know the truth about your homeworld. He led them deeper into the station, through corridors that grew older and dustier with each turn. David kept his hand near his weapon. William looked at everything with scientific curiosity. Rebecca simply wanted answers. They entered a vast chamber filled with data crystals and holographic projectors. Thal waved his hand, and images appeared in the air before them. Rebecca gasped. The images showed space, stars, and worlds being formed. 50,000 years ago, Thal began, a species called the Architects ruled the galaxy. They were the first to achieve faster-than-light travel. They were the first to map the stars. And they decided to seed life across the galaxy. The hologram showed ships traveling between worlds, planting organisms, guiding evolution. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Architects classified every world they touched, Thal continued. Class 1 worlds were paradise planets with gentle weather and abundant resources. Class 5 worlds had some challenges but were still safe. Class 9 worlds were considered dangerous and difficult. And F? Rebecca asked, though part of her already knew the answer would be bad. Thal's hand trembled as he changed the display. A blue and green world appeared, rotating slowly. Rebecca recognized it immediately. Home. Class 12, Thal whispered. The highest danger classification ever recorded. Your world wasn't just dangerous, Ambassador Hayes. It was specifically designed as a proving ground. The hologram shifted, showing ancient ships approaching Earth. Rebecca watched as teams of architects landed on her world. What happened next made her stomach turn. The first expedition lasted 6 days. Creatures from Earth's prehistoric past attacked the camp. Animals that Rebecca recognized from museum displays tore through advanced alien technology like it was paper. The weather changed without warning, trapping the survivors in a hurricane that shouldn't have formed. When rescue ships arrived, they found only bones. They tried again? William asked, horrified. 3 times, Thal confirmed. The architects were proud. They refused to believe any world could defeat them. The second expedition lasted longer but ended worse. Microscopic organisms infected the research team. The aliens' advanced medicine couldn't stop diseases that Earth's bacteria had spent millions of years perfecting. The third expedition was destroyed by an earthquake that split their base in half. David stared at the images. But we survived there. Humans evolved there. That's what terrifies us, Thal said. You didn't just survive a Class 12 world. You thrived on it. You became its apex predators. Do you understand what that means? Rebecca was beginning to understand. Every animal on Earth, every plant, every virus had been honed by millions of years of the harshest evolutionary pressure imaginable. And humans had risen to the top of that deadly pyramid. The architects eventually gave up, Thal explained. They placed a warning beacon in your solar system and classified Earth as forbidden. No one was allowed to approach it. The beacon was supposed to last forever. What happened to it? William asked. It failed about 10,000 years ago. By then, the architects had vanished. Most species forgot about Earth entirely. Your world became a ghost story that parents told children. A legend of the most dangerous place in the galaxy. The hologram showed Earth in modern times, cities spreading across continents, ships launching into space. Thal looked at Rebecca with something between fear and wonder. Your species wasn't supposed to survive, he said. And yet you built civilizations. You created art and music. You developed philosophy and compassion. You did something the architects thought impossible. You evolved in hell and somehow didn't become demons. Rebecca felt the weight of this knowledge settle on her shoulders. Every human who had ever lived, every ancestor who had survived predators and diseases and disasters, had been doing the impossible. They had thought Earth was normal because they had nothing to compare it to. What happens now? Rebecca asked. Thal turned off the hologram. In the sudden darkness, his eyes glowed faintly. Now the Council must decide if they can trust a species forged in the galaxy's greatest crucible. Some will fear you. Some will want to use you. And some will pray that certain old enemies never learn what you truly are. What enemies? David demanded. But Thal was already walking toward the door, and he didn't answer. The emergency council session began at dawn. Rebecca and her team were escorted to a viewing chamber where they could watch but not participate. Below them, representatives from 47 species gathered in a massive circular room. Elder Counselor Vex called the meeting to order. We face an unprecedented situation. A Class 12 species has achieved spaceflight. We must decide how to proceed. The debate started immediately. A squat, armored alien named Counselor Breck stood first. The solution is simple. Send them back to their world and quarantine their system. They're too dangerous to integrate into galactic society. They haven't attacked anyone, protested a gentle, bird-like counselor. Fear is not a valid reason to imprison an entire species. Fear is the only rational response, Breck shot back. Look at the records. Every creature on their world is a weapon perfected by evolution. And humans conquered that world. What happens when they turn that aggression toward us? Rebecca clenched her fists. She wanted to shout that humans weren't monsters, but the viewing chamber was soundproofed. She could only watch. Another faction emerged, led by a silver-scaled diplomat named Morn. Perhaps we can use them. A Class 12 species would make powerful allies. With proper guidance and control, humans could serve Council interests in dangerous regions. David made a disgusted sound. They want to turn us into attack dogs. The third faction was smaller but growing. A counselor from a water-dwelling species spoke up. They deserve a chance to prove themselves. Yes, they come from a harsh world, but they also created beauty. Their art, their literature, their music. These aren't the achievements of mindless killers. Counselor Kryn, a massive warrior covered in scars, slammed his fist on the table. Words are cheap. Let's test these Deathworlders. Put them through trials. If they're as dangerous as the records say, we'll see it. If they're not, we'll know they can be trusted. The chamber erupted in argument. Species shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some wanted humans destroyed. Others wanted them enslaved. A few genuinely wanted to give humanity a chance. Rebecca had heard enough. She activated the communication panel in the viewing chamber. May I speak? The council chamber fell silent. Vex looked surprised but nodded. The floor recognizes Ambassador Rebecca Hayes of Earth. Rebecca's voice echoed through the chamber. You've spent hours debating what we are. Let me tell you who we are. Yes, Earth is harsh. Yes, we evolved facing challenges that would destroy most species. But we didn't survive through cruelty. We survived through cooperation. She paused, making sure every counselor was listening. When humans faced predators, we worked together. When disease struck, we cared for our sick. When disasters came, we rebuilt together. Earth didn't make us monsters. It made us survivors who refused to abandon each other. Pretty words, Breck muttered. But how do we know you mean them? Test us, Rebecca said simply. Not with combat trials or military challenges. Test our character. Give us impossible tasks. Watch how we respond to crisis. Judge us by our actions, not by your fears. The debate continued for 2 more days. Rebecca watched species argue passionately for and against humanity. She saw genuine fear in some eyes and genuine hope in others. Finally, on the 3rd day, Counselor Morn stood with a grave expression. Before we vote, Morn said slowly, there's something you all need to know. Something we've kept secret for 10,000 years. The chamber went quiet. Even Breck stopped talking. The Void Reavers, Morn continued. The ancient enemy we thought extinct. They're not gone. They're dormant, waiting. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Rebecca saw several counselors turn pale. The name Void Reavers clearly meant something terrible to these species. The Reavers were the Architects' military, Morn explained. When the Architects vanished, the Reavers went into deep sleep. But they left protocols. If a Class 12 species ever achieved spaceflight, the Reavers would wake. Vex stood, his ancient face grim. If we accept humanity into the Council, if we broadcast their existence across the galaxy, the Reavers will know. They'll return. And when they do? When they do, what? Rebecca demanded. What do these Reavers want? Morn looked directly at her. They harvest Class 12 species. They believe only the strongest should inherit the galaxy. If they learn about Earth, they'll come to test you. And if you fail their test, they'll sterilize your world and wait another 50,000 years for the next candidate. The chamber exploded in fresh debate. Some counselors now wanted to hide humanity's existence entirely. Others argued it was already too late. The Reavers might already know. Finally, the vote was called. It passed by only 3 votes. Humanity could integrate into the Council, but under strict observation. Any sign of aggression would mean immediate quarantine. As the session ended, Morn approached the viewing chamber. I voted for you, Ambassador Hayes. But I pray we haven't just doomed the galaxy. Because if the Reavers come, Your people will face a test that no species has ever passed. Rebecca met his gaze steadily. Then we'll be the first. 6 months passed. Humanity began spreading across Council space, but everyone was watching. Every human ship, every human action was being judged. Rebecca knew the trials were coming. She just didn't know when. The first test came without warning. Captain John Foster commanded the human freighter Odyssey, carrying medical supplies to a colony world. His crew of 12 were civilians, not soldiers. They were engineers, pilots, and cargo handlers just trying to do their jobs. The Council's navigation system sent them through the Krell Reach, a region known for pirate activity. John questioned the route but was told it was the fastest way. He suspected the truth. Someone wanted to see how humans would react to danger. The Krell pirates struck in the middle of the night shift. 5 warships surrounded the Odyssey and demanded surrender. John's crew had no military weapons, only tools for loading and unloading cargo. "We're dead," his co-pilot whispered. "No," John said calmly. "We're human. Start thinking." What happened next would be studied in Council military academies for years. John's crew turned mining lasers into cutting beams. They used cargo containers as shields and makeshift battering rams. The loading bay became a trap filled with explosive decompression zones. When the pirates boarded, they found themselves fighting an enemy that turned every tool and piece of equipment into a weapon. The battle lasted 20 minutes. The pirates retreated in confusion, unable to understand how a cargo ship had defeated trained warriors. Council observers who had been secretly monitoring the fight sat in stunned silence. The report read, "Humans display unprecedented adaptability under pressure. Recommend continued observation." The second test came 2 weeks later. A plague broke out on Vela 4, a densely populated colony world. The disease was highly contagious and deadly. Most Council species refused to send aid. The risk was too high. Dr. William Bennett volunteered immediately. He took a team of human doctors and scientists directly into the contaminated zones. Other species watched from orbit, expecting the humans to die within days. William's methods horrified the Council's medical observers. He worked with infected patients directly, with minimal protective gear. He tested experimental treatments that other species considered too dangerous. He synthesized medicines using techniques that broke a dozen safety protocols. A Velcrin doctor contacted him via video link. "You're being reckless. You'll kill yourselves and your patients." William looked up from his work, exhausted and covered in sweat. "Maybe. But doing nothing will definitely kill them. We don't have time for safe and slow." 3 weeks later, the plague was contained. William's team had created a cure using methods that terrified other species but saved over 50,000 lives. The human doctors were tired, sick, and had pushed themselves beyond what should have been possible. The Council's report noted, "Human medical practices appear dangerous but are remarkably effective. Their willingness to risk themselves for strangers is unusual." The third test was political. Thomas Reed, humanity's negotiator, was sent to meet with the Draxian Empire. The Draxians were a warrior culture that respected only strength. The meeting was supposed to establish a trade agreement, but everyone knew it was really about testing human courage. War Chief Drac challenged Thomas immediately. "Humans claim to be strong. Prove it. Face me in ritual combat." Thomas looked at the massive alien warrior, easily twice his size and covered in battle scars. Every Council observer expected him to either fight and lose or refuse and look weak. Instead, Thomas smiled. "I have a different proposal. Your people value strength and survival skills. So do mine. But we define strength differently. I challenge you to a survival competition instead." Drac was intrigued. "Explain." "We each get dropped on a hostile world with basic supplies. Whoever survives longest wins. Combat is easy, War Chief. Survival is the true test." The competition lasted 5 days. Thomas used techniques learned from Earth's harshest environments. He found water, built shelter, and avoided dangerous predators through clever thinking rather than fighting. Drac was impressed despite himself. On the 5th day, he called off the challenge and declared Thomas worthy of respect. The Draxians signed the trade agreement and requested more contact with humanity. Their report stated, "These humans understand what strength truly means." But something else was happening. Lieutenant Emma Clark, commanding the patrol ship Vanguard, noticed strange vessels following human ships. They didn't match any known Council designs. They used technology that seemed ancient and advanced at the same time. Emma's sensor officer traced encrypted signals between the mystery ships. It took 3 weeks to crack the code. When Emma finally read the decrypted message, her blood ran cold. The worthy have risen. Begin harvest protocols. Target, Death World Sigma XVI. Emma sent an emergency transmission to Rebecca. They're coming. Whoever they are, they've been watching us since we left Earth. And they're not here to welcome us. Rebecca received the message in the middle of a council meeting. She read it twice, then looked up at the assembled species. Many of them looked afraid. They had known this moment would come. The Void Reavers were awake. And they were coming for humanity. They came from the darkness between stars. The Void Reaver fleet appeared without warning across 12 council worlds simultaneously. Their ships were massive, black as space itself, covered in symbols that predated every known language. Each vessel dwarfed the largest council warships. They had been sleeping for 50,000 years, and now they were awake. A single message broadcast across every communication channel in the galaxy. The voice was ancient and cold. We are the Reavers. We come for the heirs of Sigma XVI. We come for those who call themselves human. Panic spread like wildfire. Council species evacuated their homeworlds. Military fleets scattered rather than face the ancient enemy. In one day, the galactic civilization that had stood for thousands of years crumbled into chaos. Rebecca stood in the council chamber, which was now nearly empty. Only a handful of species remained. Elder Vex was there, looking older than ever. Councillor Morn stood beside him, grim-faced. You need to tell us everything, Rebecca demanded. No more secrets. Vex nodded slowly. The Void Reavers are not enemies of the Architects. They are the Architects. Or rather, they were the military arm of the Architect civilization. When the Architects vanished, the Reavers entered hibernation. But they left instructions. If a Class 12 species achieved spaceflight, the Reavers would wake to test them. Test us for what? David asked. To see if you're worthy of inheriting the galaxy, Morn answered. The Architects designed the Death Worlds to forge a new generation of Guardians. Being strong enough to protect the galaxy from threats the Architects couldn't defeat. But strength alone isn't enough. You must prove you have wisdom and compassion too. And if we fail? William asked. No one answered. They didn't need to. The fate of failed species was clear. Rebecca activated her communication device. This is Ambassador Hayes to all human vessels. Return to Earth. We make our stand at home. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. In that time, Rebecca broadcast a message across all council channels. The Reavers are coming for us, not for you. But we don't run. And we don't abandon our allies. Anyone who wants to stand with humanity is welcome. Anyone who wants to flee has our understanding. She expected maybe a handful of ships to join them. Instead, hundreds came. The Draxians sent their entire fleet. The Velkrans sent medical ships. Even species that had voted against humanity sent vessels to help. Why? Rebecca asked the Draxian captain. The warrior smiled. You stood in the plague zone when we wouldn't. You gave us respect when you could have shown fear. Now we stand with you. The Reaver Vanguard arrived at Earth's solar system with 20 massive warships. The combined human council fleet had 300 vessels, but they were like children's toys compared to the ancient giants. Captain Emma Clark commanded the defense fleet from her ship Vanguard. She studied the enemy formation, looking for weaknesses. They are powerful, she told her crew, but they've been asleep for 50,000 years. They fight like the galaxy used to be. We fight like it is now. The battle began. Emma's tactics confused the Reavers immediately. Human ships used asteroids as projectiles, fought in radiation zones that would kill most species, and adapted their strategy every few minutes. The Reavers' advanced computers couldn't predict human behavior because humans kept changing the rules. Council species watched and learned. A Velkran captain saw humans using debris as cover and copied the tactic. A Draxian war chief watched humans coordinate 3 different ship types into one attack and adapted the formation. Cooperation became their greatest weapon. The battle raged for 6 hours. Losses were heavy on both sides. Then Emma led a desperate boarding mission onto the Reaver flagship. She took 50 soldiers through a damaged docking port, fighting their way toward the command center. Inside, they found not a war room but a testing chamber. A Reaver commander stood waiting, ancient beyond imagination. Around him were screens showing the battle, showing human ships protecting council vessels, showing wounded humans carrying injured aliens to safety. Why do you fight? The Reaver asked. Its voice echoed with age and power. Emma stood straight despite her injuries. We fight for our home. For our friends. For the species who stood with us when they didn't have to. The architects designed your world to forge strength, the Reaver said. We needed to know if that strength came with wisdom. Power without compassion is tyranny. Do you seek to dominate, or to protect? Rebecca's voice came through the communication channel. She had been listening to everything. We fight for those who can't fight for themselves. That's what humans do. That's what we've always done. Silence filled the chamber. Then, slowly, the Reaver fleet powered down their weapons. Across the solar system, the ancient warships went dark. You have passed, the Reaver commander said. The galaxy has waited 50,000 years for guardians worthy of the name. Rise, heirs of Sigma XVI. The stars need protecting, and we are too old and too few. This duty falls to you now. The war was over before it truly began. The Reavers didn't want to destroy humanity. They wanted to find them. 3 months later, Rebecca stood in the council chamber once more. The station had been rebuilt. Species had returned. And Earth's designation in the galactic records had changed. Where once it read Death World Sigma XVI, forbidden, it now said Earth, homeworld of the Guardians. Elder Vex approached her. Your species will face many challenges ahead. Being a Guardian is not easy. Rebecca looked out at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled alongside council vessels. Dr. William trained alien doctors in human medical techniques. Captain John taught council crews about creative problem-solving. Emma and David trained mixed-species security forces. We came from a world that tried to kill us every day, Rebecca said quietly. We learned to survive together, to protect each other, to never give up. Earth was harsh, but it taught us something precious. It taught us that we're stronger when we stand together. Vex smiled, something Rebecca had never seen him do before. Perhaps the architects knew what they were doing after all. Rebecca thought about Earth, about humanity's long climb from caves to stars, about every ancestor who had survived impossible odds. They had come from hell itself. But they hadn't brought darkness with them. They had brought something the galaxy desperately needed. They had brought hope.